Girish, before this we had the panel where we comprehensively discussed everything about, due diligence, compliance, what investors should be looking for. In this session, we want to squarely talk about regional centers. What makes a regional center unique and stand out? Or, there are a bunch of reputed regional centers out there. How do we know which one is the best one and which one is the best one for me in particular? So, Girish, to start with, give us a sense of what CMB Regional Centers really does. How long have you been in the business? What are some of the big projects you've done? Give us your track record a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, Mridu. So CMB Regional Centers was first established in 1997. So we are actually one of the oldest active regional centers in EB5 space. In all these 27 years of our experience, we have worked with more than 6,300 plus investors from 103 different countries, including India. And we have seen many, many approvals. We have seen a lot of success stories when it comes to receiving permanent green card and return of capital. We have raised around $3.1 billion US dollars, upwards of that in all these projects, 85 odd projects that we have worked. And we were successful in returning the capital back, almost half of it. So rest of them are still invested in the projects. We have repaid back around 1.3 billion US dollars rather in all these projects. So when it comes to a regional center, CMB Regional Center has that experience, and we act as a fiduciary on behalf of the investors. Of course, the regional center is designation which an entity gets from USCIS, which is the adjudicating body. So each regional center has different ways, different comfort levels when it comes to working with different developers, projects, asset classes, which area, looking at the demand. So it really matters as to what kind of right questions any investor is asking the regional center so that the regional center can respond accordingly. It is also the basic responsibility of the regional center to answer all the questions transparently, not just through email or oral communication, but all these details which are being quoted are also featuring in PPM or private placement memorandum, which is submitted to USCIS. So all the data is backed by the document which goes into USCIS, so there is no question of misinformation or miscommunication on behalf of the regional centers if the intention of the regional center is to conduct proper business.
Right, okay. So then are all EB5 regional centers the same, given that they're all reputed, they have a great track record, they've safely returned investors' money? What makes a particular regional center stand out or make it unique?
Right. So regional center, as I mentioned, is a designation. So every regional center is the same in terms of them being a regional center as such. What differentiates a regional center is basically their track record, their current project, their comfort level with the developer that they are currently working with, the track record between the developer and the regional center. That is very important. It is also very important to understand that the regional center has to act as a fiduciary, and when I say fiduciary, it's a commonly used term in EB5 or regional center space, but the responsibility is huge in terms of ensuring that the job creation which is being projected in that particular project is being fulfilled via the construction activities. So the regional center has to take care of the day-to-day management in terms of having periodic reviews or periodic information from the developer that they are working with, whether the project is on time, whether the construction activity is happening on time, whether the funds are which are going from the regional center NCE into the project, whether they are being utilized in a proper way or not. And different regional centers function in different ways. Now, just to give you an example, there are regional centers who themselves also have are developers. So there are developers who get themselves a regional center designation. So in that, essentially, the developer is constructing something, and there is a separate SPV, which is another entity of the developer themselves who is seeking funds from EB5 investors. Now, is this legal? Absolutely. However, the question which that investor needs to ask while looking at these kind of projects is, if there is any issue with that particular project, what is that regional center going to do? Because they themselves are the developers in that particular project. So there have been success stories in terms of the developer being a regional center or the other way around as well. But then additional questions need to be asked.
Yeah, so
just to get
there
yourself
are
comfortable.
chances of a conflict of interest
Correct.
happening there directly, right? Well, for our viewers on CNBC TV 18, in simple terms, what are the real benefits of an EB5 visa? Who is it best suited for?
Right. You asked the right question. The second question was relevant. That first we need to understand whether EB5 is the right option for us. Once you know that you want to reside with your family in the US permanently, that is when EB5 serves the best option or the fastest option. So first advantage, it is the fastest option in terms of getting a permanent residency in the US. Second, someone who is already in the US on any non-immigrant category, for example, a student visa or an H-1B visa, they are able to concurrently file for adjustment of status, which means that they don't need to be tied up with the current employer, because we know that there are a lot of uncertainties when it comes to H-1B folks in the US. If someone unfortunately ends up losing their job in the US on H-1B visa, they have to leave US within 60 days unless they are able to secure another job. If they have already applied for EB5, they don't have to, because they have EAD and travel permit, which they are able to get in 4 to 6 months after applying EB5 visa. So essentially you're getting all the benefits or most of the benefits of a green card even before your initial petition of EB5 is approved. So that's one advantage. Second advantage is someone who is in India and is planning for future. So someone wants to send their children to study in the US. The fees which are involved for international student are thrice or twice, 4 times, as compared to someone who is local in the US in that particular state. So you are able to avail in-state tuition fees if you're in the US.
This is within the application stage itself.
Correct. So once you get your conditional
EAD.
residency and you stay in that particular state, now each state has different laws and regulations to avail that benefit of in-state tuition fees. But essentially that opens that option or door for you to avail those. And if you calculate, this 800,000 is going to come back to you, as opposed to the fees which someone will end up paying, which are thrice or 4 times more than someone who is already in the US. So all in all, it becomes a beneficial proposition. And plus that student is also going to apply for job once they are on their green card. So that allows flexibility in terms of their status in the US as well.
Right. And what are some of the top 3 or 4 pitfalls that investors should watch out for?
I think this was discussed in the previous panel as well, that when am I going to reach the US? Of course, if there is a faster route to reach US in terms of different projects, of course. However, you are investing with a project. So it is very important to get comfortable with that project and that regional center. And the timeline is just a byproduct of it. Slow and steady wins the race. So here, the real return of your investment is the green card, and not just the conditional green card, but the permanent green card. So timeline is one of the pitfalls wherein people just focus on the timeline and kind of ignore the project per se. Second is return on your investment. How much am I going to get paid? You will find that most of the regional center investments, the return on that investment, the distributions are on the lower side. They are usually less than 1%. And I have seen a lot of investors looking for better return on their investment have invested into projects wherein they are getting more than 1%, probably 5 or 10% based on the business plan, and they were unable to secure their permanent green card even though they were able to secure the conditional green card. So there is a possibility that if the project is unable to show construction completion or enough job creation, which is 10 full-time jobs per investor, that investor might have to leave US even after staying in the US for 2 years continuously on their conditional green card. So this is very important as well.
Right, right. That's very important to know. Now, you were talking about the projects and the success factors of a project. So tell us then, at CMB, how do you define a successful project? What are the metrics that you're tracking? How do you ensure that a project is really compliant in every way?
So CMB has a separate project team who looks at all the projects agnostically. So even though we have worked with few developers 30 or 40 times, does that mean that we blindly take all the projects that they bring? The answer is no. In case there is some issue with that particular project, just because we have a good relationship with them in previous projects, they have repaid the loan back on time. Does that mean that we are not going to ask questions to them at this instance? If something goes wrong, then the answer is no. It is the duty of a regional center to look at each project separately and to treat each project equally importantly. So the first and foremost thing which CMB does is to look at those projects in terms of the asset class, the track record of the developer, where is actually the project, in which state, in which area, and does that particular asset class have enough demand in that particular area so that not just the construction is complete, but once the construction is complete, the developer is able to sell off that particular project or refinance that project, and the same funds will be utilized for the repayment of the loan. And once the repayment of loan happens, the same funds will be utilized for the repayment of capital. So it's not just about the job creation or the green card, it's also equally important that we ensure that the repayment of the capital is happening as well. And as I mentioned, we have raised 3 billion, we have repaid back 1.3 billion US dollars. So that counts, and that is one of the feather in our caps, that we were able to successfully repay capital back in billions.
Right, and that should give confidence to
Yes.
potential EB5 investors here. But as we wrap up this conversation, your final message to all those sitting with that American dream here in this room or on CNBC TV18, your key message on how to get started on that EB5 investor visa program journey.
So my suggestion would be to start with the discussion within the family. If you want to take that step of going ahead with EB5 visa or not, and once you decide, you should reach out to 2 or 3 people, not more than that, because too many people will give too much information. Google is also, or internet is also a great tool to utilize to find out more information. However, not all information is correct. What you read over the internet, there might be few things which might be incorrect. So first step is to do your own due diligence in terms of whom you want to speak with, and then reach out to them, ask all the relevant questions, and do not sign up or do not take hasty decision just because you want to move forward until and unless you are sure 100% that you are comfortable with this particular regional center, the attorney, the project, and you want to be in the US permanently in the first place.
Right. Thank you, Girish. That was really insightful. Thank you for sharing all those insights into how to choose the right regional center and get started on the EB5 journey. Appreciate you joining us here
Thank
today.
you so much, Mridu.